What you are about to hear may explain something you could never make sense of. Someone recently told your soulmate to stay away from you. Not a friend. Not a jealous person. Not someone who simply disliked you. It was a stranger. A woman your soulmate had never met before. She appeared at a moment when your soulmate was already thinking about you. And the first thing she said was so specific that your soulmate immediately knew this was not an ordinary conversation. She looked at them and said, "You need to be careful with that person." Your soulmate asked, "Which person?" The woman mentioned you. Then everything changed. Because she did not ask for your name. She did not ask who you were. She spoke as though she had already seen you somewhere. Your soulmate became uncomfortable. They wanted to know how this stranger could possibly know anything about you. But instead of answering, the woman asked a question. Have you noticed how different you feel whenever that person comes into your thoughts? Your soulmate went silent. That question hit somewhere deep. Because the answer was yes. There was something about you they could never explain. They could go through an entire day without thinking about you. Then one tiny thing would bring everything back. A familiar song. A certain place. A random memory. A sentence someone said. And suddenly, there you were again. Not physically. But in their mind. Your presence had somehow remained even when you were nowhere near them. The stranger watched their reaction carefully. Then she said, "That is exactly why I am telling you to walk away." Your soulmate asked why. This time, the woman did not hesitate. Because you don't understand what this connection is going to do to you. That sentence stayed in their mind long after the conversation ended. And maybe you have felt something similar. You may have wondered why this connection refuses to disappear completely. Why silence never feels like a true ending. Why distance seems to create more questions instead of fewer. Why your soulmate can appear completely detached one moment and strangely affected the next. There is a reason. But you are not supposed to hear the full answer yet. First, you need to understand what happened before the stranger appeared. Your soulmate had been trying to make a decision. They had reached a point where they wanted certainty. Part of them wanted to forget you. Another part kept searching for reasons to understand you. They had considered walking away completely. No more checking. No more wondering. No more replaying old conversations. No more imagining what might happen if the two of you crossed paths again. They wanted peace. Then the stranger appeared. And suddenly, the decision became much harder. Because the warning raised a question your soulmate could not ignore. What if there was something about you they had never noticed? What if the version of you they knew was incomplete? What if the person they had been judging was not the person you truly were? That thought disturbed them. So they asked the stranger, "What exactly do you know about this person?" The woman looked away for a moment. Then she answered, "Enough to tell you that leaving may not be as simple as you think." Your soulmate stared at her. That was not the answer they expected. They wanted a reason to forget you. Instead, she had given them another mystery. And mysteries are dangerous when the heart is already involved. My child, listen carefully. You have spent enough time wondering whether someone understands your heart. You have watched people judge you from the outside. You have seen people make conclusions from one mistake. You have experienced moments when your silence was mistaken for weakness. Your distance was interpreted as indifference. Your kindness was taken for granted. And your pain was hidden so well that people assumed you had never been hurt. But heaven sees what people cannot. In this message, Jesus speaks not as a voice of fear, but as a reminder that your worth was never determined by another person's opinion. You do not need to become smaller so someone else can feel comfortable. You do not need to chase someone who is confused about your value. And you certainly do not need to prove your heart to someone who has already decided not to understand it. Archangel Michael stands in this message as a symbol of protection and discernment. His message is simple. Do not let fear make your decisions. Because fear has a strange way of turning incomplete information into absolute conclusions. That is exactly what happened with your soulmate. The stranger knew something. But she did not know everything. And there is a huge difference between those two things. Your soulmate did not realize that yet. They only knew one thing. This woman was speaking with unusual certainty. So they asked her again, "Why are you so concerned about me being with this person?" The stranger took a slow breath. Then she said something that made your soulmate's heart drop. Because if you get too close, they may be the one person who sees through you. Your soulmate froze. That was not an accusation against you. It was an exposure of them. For the first time, they realized the stranger wasn't really talking about what you might do to them. She was talking about what being close to you might reveal inside them. Their fears. Their insecurities. Their unfinished past. The emotions they had buried. The truth they had avoided. And suddenly, the warning sounded different. Maybe the danger was not you. Maybe the danger was what they would have to confront within themselves. Your soulmate thought about every moment they had spent with you. They remembered the way you looked at them. The conversations that seemed ordinary at the time. The moments when you understood something they had not even explained. They remembered how strangely comfortable silence could feel around you. And then another memory surfaced. A moment they had almost forgotten. You had once said something that stayed with them. You probably did not realize how important those words would become. But they remembered. That single memory made your soulmate question everything. Because the stranger had just described something that you had unknowingly been showing them for a long time. You saw them. Not the image they showed everyone else. Not the confident version. Not the carefully controlled version. You noticed what they tried to hide. And that terrified them. Now listen to what happened next. Your soulmate went back to the stranger and asked one final question. If you know so much about this person, then tell me who they really are. The woman became completely silent. For several seconds, she said nothing. Then she looked directly at your soulmate and whispered, "You are asking the wrong question." Your soulmate frowned. "What should I be asking?" The woman stepped closer. And what she said next was the reason your soulmate could not sleep that night. She said, "You should be asking why heaven allowed you to meet them in the first place." Your soulmate felt a chill. Because suddenly, the entire connection looked different. The timing. The separation. The unexpected meetings. The strange coincidences. The emotions that refused to disappear. Everything seemed connected. But the stranger wasn't finished. She had one more thing to reveal. Something she had deliberately kept hidden until she was certain your soulmate was ready to hear it. She looked at them and said, "There is something about your soulmate that you have completely misunderstood." Your soulmate asked, "What?" The woman's expression changed. And then she gave them a warning that had nothing to do with heartbreak. Nothing to do with betrayal. Nothing to do with losing someone. It was about your identity. She said, "If you discover who that person really is, you will understand why you were never able to forget them." And that was the moment your soulmate realized something terrifying. The stranger had not come to destroy the connection. She had come because she knew a secret. A secret about you. A secret your soulmate had never been told. And before she walked away, she gave them one final sentence. Whatever you do, don't judge them by what happened before you met them. Your soulmate stood there completely still. Because now they had only one question left. What happened before you met them? And why did a complete stranger know about it? That answer is where everything begins to change. Because the truth about you is not what your soulmate thinks. And when they finally discover it, they will understand why this connection survived every attempt to end it. Your soulmate could not stop thinking about those words. Don't judge them by what happened before you met them. There was something strange about that sentence. It sounded less like advice and more like a clue. For the first time, your soulmate began wondering whether the person they thought they knew was only one chapter of a much bigger story. They remembered your first conversations. The guarded answers. The moments when you changed the subject whenever your past came up. The way your expression sometimes became distant for no obvious reason. They had noticed those things before. They simply never understood them. Now they started looking at every memory differently. Meanwhile, the stranger had already disappeared. Your soulmate tried to find her again. Nothing. No contact. No explanation. No obvious connection between her and you. It was almost as though she had appeared for one purpose and vanished the moment that purpose was complete. But one thing bothered your soulmate more than anything else. The stranger had used a phrase that nobody else knew. A phrase connected to a moment from your past. Something you had once said quietly during a conversation. Your soulmate remembered it because you had spoken with unusual seriousness that day. You had said, "Some things about me are better understood later." At the time, your soulmate thought you were simply being mysterious. Now those words felt completely different. They began asking themselves whether you had known all along that your life contained something they were not ready to understand. That question created a new kind of tension. Your soulmate wanted answers. But they also felt guilty for wanting them. Because deep down, they realized something. You had never demanded that they understand everything. You had simply asked to be accepted for who you were in the present. And perhaps that was what made the stranger's warning so powerful. She had given your soulmate a reason to doubt you. But she had also given them a reason to look deeper. That night, your soulmate opened an old conversation between you. They read it again. Then again. Not because they were searching for romance. They were searching for evidence. Something hidden. A clue. A sentence that might explain why this connection had felt different from everything before it. And then they found something. A message from you that seemed completely ordinary when you first sent it. But now it looked almost prophetic. You had told them, "Someday you'll understand why I couldn't tell you everything." Your soulmate stared at the screen. Their hearts started beating faster. Because you had never explained what you meant. They had forgotten about that message. Until now. And suddenly, the stranger's warning returned. Don't judge them by what happened before you met them. Your soulmate began wondering what you had survived. What had forced you to become so guarded? What had taught you to hide your pain so well? Who had hurt you badly enough that trust became difficult? But there was another possibility. Maybe your past was not simply about something painful. Maybe it contained something powerful. Something that explained your unusual strength. That thought led your soulmate somewhere they had never gone before. They started thinking about the way you treated people. Even when someone disappointed you, you rarely tried to destroy them. You walked away. Even when you were hurt, you often chose silence instead of revenge. When someone misunderstood you, you sometimes let them believe whatever they wanted. At the time, that behavior seemed strange. Now it looked intentional. You had learned something. Not everyone deserves access to your deepest truth. And that lesson had cost you something. Your soulmate could feel it. For the first time, they stopped asking, "What's wrong with this person?" Instead, they started asking, "What happened to them?" That change matters. Because curiosity can open a door that fear keeps locked. And once that door opened, memories began connecting. Your soulmate remembered one particular moment. You had been talking about the future. They had asked you what you wanted. You gave a surprisingly simple answer. Peace. Not money. Not attention. Not recognition. Just peace. Your soulmate had laughed at the time. Now they understood why you said it. Someone who has experienced enough chaos stops chasing noise. They start valuing quiet. They stop explaining every decision. They become selective about who gets close. And perhaps that is why your soulmate sometimes felt like you were impossible to read. You were not impossible to understand. You were simply careful. There is a difference. And the stranger knew that difference. But she still hadn't revealed the most important part. She had warned your soulmate to stay away. Yet she had also encouraged them to look deeper. Why? Because she knew something your soulmate did not. She knew that the connection between you would eventually force a decision. Either your soulmate would believe the fear surrounding you, or they would discover the truth for themselves. That decision became harder when another strange event happened. Your soulmate received a message. It was from someone they had not spoken to in a long time. The message contained only one sentence. Be careful who you believe. Your soulmate immediately thought of the stranger. Then they looked at your name. For several seconds, they considered contacting you. They typed something. Deleted it. Tried again. Stopped. They didn't know what to ask. How could they possibly say, a stranger warned me about you, and now I'm trying to understand whether she was right? So they said nothing. But silence didn't bring peace. Instead, it created tension. Because your soulmate had begun noticing something else. Whenever they tried to convince themselves that you were bad for them, their own memories fought back. You had been there during moments when they felt alone. You had listened without demanding anything. You had encouraged them when they doubted themselves. You had noticed details other people ignored. And perhaps most importantly, you never tried to control them. That realization unsettled them. Because if the stranger was correct, where was the evidence? There wasn't much. Only fear. Only assumptions. Only a warning without a complete explanation. And your soulmate finally understood something. A warning without truth can become manipulation. So they made a decision. They would not blindly follow the stranger. They would investigate. Not secretly. Not obsessively. They would simply watch. They wanted to see who you were when nobody was trying to impress anyone. They watched how you reacted to disappointment. They noticed how you treated people who could do nothing for you. They paid attention to what happened when you were angry. And slowly, something unexpected happened. Their fear began disappearing. Not completely. But enough. Because your actions did not match the story they had been given. Then came the moment that changed everything. Your soulmate saw you helping someone who had once hurt you. There was no audience. No reason to perform. You could have ignored the person. Instead, you stopped. You listened. You helped. Then you walked away without asking for gratitude. Your soulmate watched from a distance. And suddenly, the stranger's words came back. You have no idea who you are dealing with. But this time, your soulmate understood the sentence differently. Maybe the stranger had not meant that you were dangerous. Maybe she meant that your depth was greater than they realized. Maybe she had seen something powerful in you. Something she feared they would misunderstand. That night, your soulmate made another discovery. They found an old photograph. It was connected to a period of your life you had never discussed. They looked at it carefully. Then they noticed something in the background. A person. A place. A symbol. Something that made the entire situation more confusing. Because that detail connected your past to the stranger. Your soulmate's hands went cold. The woman had not appeared randomly. She had known where to find them. She had known about you. And now there was proof that she had some connection to the chapter of your life you never discussed. Your soulmate stared at the photograph for a long time. Then their phone rang. Unknown number. They almost ignored it. Almost. But something inside them told them to answer. They picked up. There was silence on the other end. Then a woman's voice said, "You found it." Your soulmate froze. They knew that voice. It was the stranger. Before they could ask how she got their number, she continued. "Now you understand why I told you to stay away." Your soulmate demanded an explanation. The woman remained quiet. Then she said something that changed the meaning of everything. "I never said they were going to hurt you." A long silence followed. Your soulmate whispered, "Then what were you warning me about?" The stranger took a breath. And her answer was almost impossible to believe. "I was warning you about what will happen when they finally remember who they are." Your soulmate's heart stopped for a moment. Because now the question was no longer whether you were dangerous. It was something far bigger. What exactly did this woman know about you? And why did she believe your soulmate would be affected by the truth? Before the call ended, the stranger gave one final instruction. "Do not ask them yet." Your soulmate asked why. The woman replied,